Katherine Sason of Today Life Coaching, because today matters and you matter. Formerly a burned out CPA and university administrator, I now get to help women who feel stuck, soul weary, or silenced to reclaim their voice and rise into their bold purpose. So I created a free guide for you. It's called Rebirth from Burnout to help your journey, and it's yours free. Just scan the code. Meeting Lima McLean, founder of Rebirth Summit, was a divine appointment. I just love her compelling mission to elevate truth and healing, including this international summit featuring over 100 inspiring stories of transformation and rebirth. And it's my joy and honor to interview our guest and a key sponsor, the influential Mark A. Granger. Mark is the co-founder of Big Impact HQ, a premier seminar and training company serving 6- and 7-figure speakers. He and his wife Shannon are famous for creating the Speak Your Path to Cash system, which has generated over $100 million in revenue for their clients. As a storyteller, Mark is a dynamic speaker and leadership communication expert, captivating audiences alongside Jack Canfield, Robert and Kim Kiyosaki, Marianne Williamson, Les Brown, and more. His biggest passion is to help speakers own their million-dollar message and transform into the leader that they're called to be. Well, Mark's amazing story of rebirth is going to move you, inspire you, and empower you. So let's jump in because it's rebirth time. And I want to welcome Mark. It's a blessing to have you here, Mark. You're a key sponsor and you are willing to share your vulnerable story with us.
Well, thank you so much, Katherine. It's fantastic to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time.
Awesome. So then let's jump in and start at the beginning because I'm curious. Mark, what was your life like before your transformation? Would you be willing to take us back there to what you were feeling emotionally, mentally, and spiritually?
Sure. So for me, I've always been what I would call the worried well. I was raised in a upper middle class family in Alaska. I had beautiful scenery to look out of, really, truly had a really good life. I was able to go to college, and I was the first one in my family to go to college. So I always felt like things seemed to work out for me, but underneath it all, there was always this message, kind of an operating system within my mind of not good enough. Something was always there around being broken or not good enough. Something felt off. And that was that was the narrative that I created around the struggles in my life.
Wow. Okay, not good enough. Don't know where that came from because it looked like you were living a charmed life. So
That's right.
what was the turning point for you?
Well, as someone when you look at the work that I do in the world of helping people step into their leadership, that is a path of consistently looking inward and being introspective. And so the real big turning point for me was at 22 when I fell in love. The first time I fell in love, had all the feel goods, fell heads over heels with a woman named Anne-Marie Madden. And Anne-Marie and I had a fantastic relationship, which ended about a year later. And that heartbreak really cracked me open. It was the best thing that happened for me because it allowed me to start to really go to work on Mark. And so that was the beginning of what I would say an introspective, mindful, spiritually driven life. Prior to that, I kind of felt like I was just pulled on whims. That's when I put a stake in the ground and said, I'm going to go to work on me.
Amazing. The worst thing turned out to be the best thing.
At that time, you got it.
Yeah. And then it forced you to say, like you say, to work on you, to go within. So what was that within inner transformation like? You obviously had to make decisions.
Well, really the biggest trend, I mean, that was it. That was one of the areas of my life because my life has been defined as a Scorpio. My life is defined by birth, death, rebirth, death, rebirth, death. And so that was a rebirth. That was probably one of the significant first rebirths and deaths in my life. But where the next one really came was on October 11th, 1993. I was taking a friend of mine to the airport. I was in college. He was my neighbor. taking him early to the airport. And during that, we had our first rain of the season, and I ended up getting struck by an oncoming truck. So it was a pickup truck. And she come around the corner, and the water, it just rained a little bit. She started sliding everywhere, and bam, we each hit head on. Probably I was going about 40 and she was going about 45. So it was a pretty brutal head on collision. And I ended up waking up in the hospital, a whole bunch of stuff with my knee and my head and clavicle. It looked like someone had taken a baseball bat to me. My buddy, he had gotten what is called seatbelt trauma. So the shoulder didn't grab, so it grabbed him just around his waist, and he ended up having to have like 6 feet of his small intestine removed. And then the woman that hit us, unfortunately, passed 8 days later. And I remember just the tremendous amount of feelings of going. I went to her funeral, and I was all bloody and on crutches, and it was a moment in my life where I began healing and didn't even realize that that was the path that I started that day.
Okay. Would you just kind of stretch out what that transformation actually felt like? Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it started first with really just having to recover from what happened. But then over the course of the years, I started to have body pain. So about 3 years later, I started just noticing tension in my shoulders and my hips. Started doing yoga, started this whole wellness path. I would go to a doctor, and they would either want to do some kind of surgery, or they'd want to just give you pills. And I'm like, no, I don't believe in that. I tried it a little bit, and I just didn't really feel like I had a partner in healing. So that's really, when I look back on it, I started down this path of healing and doing everything I could to learn about my body. Fast forward to the night of my 49th birthday. I had been getting massages almost every week as a way of trying to manage my body pain. I've been doing all these sort of things. Nothing was working. I was sitting in my chair, my body aching, and tears were just coming down my face. And I'm like, I'm not even 50 years old, and I feel like I'm 70. Some people could say it was fibromyalgia, and others say it was PMR. And I hated the labels, because then there was this whole story that my brain and my mind would create around a label and around what's possible or not possible with that label. And it wasn't. So that's when I really started. I said, I need to fix this. And that was 7 years ago. And the last 7 years, I have really stepped into the world of energy, specifically Qigong. And that and just functional movement has changed everything in my life. And it really has taken me inward to have a spiritual relationship with God.
I love that. And so this practice of Qigong has helped you do the inner work as well as manifest your healing in your body.
That's
Were there
right.
any other people besides God, or are there tools that you used?
Oh, I see dozens of little helpers and godsends along the way, whether that was just a distinction they made at a yoga class, or whether it was a massage therapist or something I saw online. All the time, there was all these distinctions going in place. But what Qigong really did for me is it allowed me to go from this intellectual understanding of energy into an embodiment of myself as energy, and that energy, that life force, is coming from the same source in all of us, which is that connection to God. So when I started seeing God as an energy that I can feel, as an energy that I can summon and bring into my body and bring into my heart, once I started looking at life and God as energy, and this is my identity, it changed everything for me and for all my clients, my wife, because we started really working at the level of cause and helping people make massive change that they're called to make in their life.
Wow, that is liberating. Wow, Mark. Yes, we are luminescent light energy beings in a human experience.
That's right.
So tell us more about, well, you obviously made it through, because look at how different you are. What else is different in your life?
I would say the biggest thing in my life is that I have really stepped out of any kind of victim mentality and stepped into the leader of my life. And what we'll see, what you see over and over again is we have been for the last 11 years, 10 years now, we have been hit over and over again with false leadership, whether that's celebrities or politicians. We've been hit with things like COVID. We've had massive disruptions to our world. And in that world, we're being called to change. And I feel like there's a massive mandate for change right now that the universe is asking. We are changing as human beings into this identity of spirit, this identity of energy that we all share together. And so for me, being able to pinpoint those as the area of my life where I am in charge of me, no more having victim mentality. And it's amazing because if you're a business owner and you're going out there, you're called to do big things and play a big game, you've got to get out of your comfort zone. And if you're not out of your comfort zone, then you're just kind of in this dirty water that eventually begins to tear your body down, tear your relationships down, tear your money down, and even tear your relationship to a higher power down. These are the areas where we have dominion in our life. But so often when we are put in a situation where we are challenged to become our best, we revert back to an old coping of how we handled it in our families, which very often is more of a victim mentality. If you haven't heard of the shame triangle, I encourage you all to look that up. Shame triangle consists of not just interactions we have with the people that are closest to us and the role that they play, but often this gets internalized as our own operating system. So when things get hard, we often will then have a part of us that is the persecutor. So we persecute ourselves for not doing it right, not doing it faster, not doing it good enough, not being on top of it. Meanwhile, we're trying to go out there and build a business and do one of the most difficult things that we could possibly do. But there's this narrative underneath thinking that we should be better. We should do it better. We have to do it better. So that's the persecutor. Then you have your rescuer, that part of you that wants to come in and save the day for either yourself or other people. And then there's the victim, which basically says something's wrong, bad, broken, too much, or not enough. And when we get into this kind of internal dialogue, we can't change who we are because we're not seeing ourselves accurately. We have a narrative that is creating a problem where a problem does not exist. So as someone who's stepping into leadership, it's critical that we stop creating problems where they do not exist so that we can be an illustration of what works in the world and how to use energy and manifestation to be an example of good quality leadership that lives from what they lead and leads from what they live.
That's perfect. But that is such a strong paradigm that many people have. How would you help somebody shift out of that to become aware of that and then to release, maybe repattern that old paradigm to this new one so that they can live their true identity? How would you help them?
So there's a couple of things around that. One, we need to recognize that the world is changing. So the changes that you need to make, you're feeling it. People are feeling the call. You are feeling the call. That call is to do something out of the ordinary. You're feeling there's something that is your expression of this life, whether it's your purpose or your calling. And therefore, because you're feeling that, there exists a reality for you to step into. So it's not just I'm doing my calling, but who are you called to be? And that's been a question for me, because then when you answer that question, then it's a matter of looking at how is my brain, my mind, getting in the way of what universe, God, spirit, source is asking of me. It would not ask this of me. I would not feel this pull. I would not feel this call unless I was given the opportunities for all of those things to unfold. And that's what I want people to understand is that once you start to get into a spiritual life and a disciplined life, a blissiplined life, where you're disciplining your thoughts, you begin to become aware of who you really are, and you can let go of the stories of who you used to be. So it really starts with recognizing that you are being given a calling, and that calling is a gift. When you feel that call, then you're going to notice the messages that you're sending yourself. And that's where it really starts are my messages coming from a place, a deep unconscious place of I can do this, or something is wrong and I now have all these barriers to overcome. When you're stepping into your calling, you have all the assistance that you need, and you just need to get out of your own way.
Love that. So don't play the victim because life is seeking a greater expansion through the unique you. That is
You
such a
well
powerful
said.
message. Wow,
Yeah.
thank you. And so obviously you're helping people, to overcome whatever paradigms they've had, especially if they've been through trauma, burnout, chronic
Absolutely.
pain. How are you using your experience to help others in your business or in your work?
Thank you for that. So fortunately, I live we had a Christmas party here. And with that, I had some friends that had not been to our house, and he wanted to see my office and he wanted to see our meditation room. And he told me that him and his wife on the drive home, they were very inspired by how intentional my wife, Shannon, and I live. And I think that's really, really the gift that I've been given, is to be intentional in what I do. So my work is an extension of my beingness. And so we have chosen to really work with at the level of cause by working with multiple 6 and 7 figure speakers who have a calling, who are out there in their work. We're able to really help them move to another level of operating through the world, because the demands of business are overwhelming, and it takes the best of us and brings us to our knees, or you're not playing the game well enough. So one of the messages that I want to send to specifically speakers who are messengers, who then are building a movement of their own and a community and a following of their own, helping them learn how to communicate like a leader, how to think like a leader, to be in integrity in their life, even though their marketing is maybe they've been trained to spin with marketing. That's not what's working anymore. The new commerce is complete authenticity, to be who you say you're going to be. This industry of empowerment, this industry of speaking, it's a combination of empowerment and digital marketing. And in that, you've got to really be someone who lives an example. Too many people are newbies and they don't recognize what is required in our industry and who you need to become. It is massive. It's a massive responsibility for you to take the stage and proclaim a truth and allow that truth to fall on the masses. That is a massive responsibility in who you're called to be. And, so for my work, it's really about asking someone who is standing on stage and making proclamations and declarations about life and improvement and personality and spirit and love and human relationships. You've got to be able to do that from a place of integrity. And that's really because it becomes so overwhelming that it's easy to speak something from the stage that isn't true. So many of what we see in the way of successful speakers on stage, behind the scenes, and we work with multiple 7-figure speakers every single day. And what we see behind them around their finances, around their overwhelm, around the time that they spent, the pressure this puts on them as a parent, as a spouse, it's toxic and it's running rampant, and it's a dirty little secret that no one wants to talk about. In contrast to that, you have a newer speaker who's struggling to make multiple 6 figures, maybe even struggling to make 6 figures, and they are a newbie. And their biggest challenge is, how do I stand out among an overcrowded world of everybody who's an expert in something? Someone's got some kind of niche, and where speakers are just being pumped out left and right. And it's hard because it's flooding the industry with people that probably aren't ready to truly be the expert holding the space at the front of the room. So really helping people understand where you're at in your journey and how to monetize that right now. Monetization is the key. It's monetization of your message is an example of your consciousness. Money and consciousness are a big deal, and a lot of people don't see that, but you've got to be in integrity with your money, both out front and behind the scenes, in order to be a person who's really making an impact on the planet.
I love that, making an impact, and that is reflected in the monetization. And so integrity, authenticity, and excellence. Mark, you're not just a speaker or a trainer. You're actually shaping the speaking industry. You're helping these leaders land global stages and generate, did we say 100 million and more?
That's
You are
correct.
leading from your redeemed experience. That is so